ones that fall in this region. Does anyone know why?
Because they're the most influential and influenced?
Yes. And more importantly, because they are both influential and influenced, they can be considered to be your pivotal drivers. So these are the ones that, based on the information today, may lie here, but based on the information tomorrow, it could be here, here, or here. So these are the ones that are most likely to change. So in terms of thinking about scenarios, and if you're looking for challenging scenarios, these are the points that you want to look out for. And depending on how they sort of interact in terms of the feedback loop. So this is the second part. You need to look at your feedback loops and see how they interact with the other nodes in your system. And if you feel that if there's value to bring these nodes into your morphological analysis workspace, then you should. The second priority would be to look at your most influential nodes. Okay? So your most influential nodes are actually the ones here. So these are your most influential nodes. Okay? And does anyone know why it's important to look at these nodes?
Having very little influence on them?
Precisely. Because they're the most influential nodes, they're the most likely to drive a challenging scenario. They drive, or they would have a greatest influence into how the entire system's map on the issue could change over time. So you definitely want to consider this nodes as well. And then finally, as a third priority, you would look at these nodes here. So these are your highly influenced nodes. So because of the changes that are going on here, they're likely to affect the nodes that are here, which are basically your policy outcomes. So this is how you would prioritize the nodes that you look at and consider as possible drivers that you would bring into your morphological analysis.
Does that mean then that you deliberately bring in nodes that relate to your policy outcomes so that you can begin to
Bring in nodes that
because if the policy area you're talking about is different than what you get on this map, there's a kind of gap there. So you want to in a sense relate the inquiry to the policy area that you're addressing. I guess in the model that we're working on, because we have a topic area, we have a client, and we want to address that problem. I mean, this is kind of open inquiry. The way you describe it is open inquiry, then the policy outcome can go towards any particular ministry, right? Or any particular topic, which is, if you have that open model, then I totally understand. But what if you have this problem area? That's the kind of model we're using here. We have a client, our problem area. Then how do we, with this, it would seem like you would actually deliberately put in a kind of node there that relates to the client policy needs, in a sense. It sounds kind of roundabout. It sounds kind of backward, but I'm just trying to...
Okay, sorry. So your concern is that this approach would... Could you just repeat?
Oh no, it's just, I don't have any, it's not a critique at all. It's just,
observation.
I understand it. This is an open inquiry approach.
Yes.
And so, when you do this, the policy outcome domain could relate to any number of topics. And then you can then give advice or you can make the implications. However, our model is more closed. That we have a client and we have a problem area, and we want to do futures exploration for the client and that problem area that addresses policy issues for them. So in that sense, how would you make sure that this systems map is relating to that upper left quadrant there?
Okay, so basically, I think this is a question which can be addressed by scoping down the area of analysis from the start. So if you start off this exercise of building a systems map with a very, very broad question, like, what is the Singaporean identity? Or what will Singapore be in 2030? Then you're likely to get many nodes all over the place: education, national service, and
Yeah.
so on. So what you need to do then is to start off the analysis with a very specific issue, so that all the nodes that you generate as part of the systems map will address that issue. And obviously, this is from a client engagement point of view. At each step of the way, we do keep our clients sort of, we engage them during the process. So when things start to, go outside of what they were actually interested in, then we can always take a few steps back and refine, have a discussion, and make sure that we're on the right track. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Didn't want to throw it down. Can get a bit complicated.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's great.
definitely look out for your pivotal drivers and consider them when you move them into the MA space.
What did you mean by flower, by the way?
Okay. Well, basically, your flower nodes are nodes which are neither influential nor influenced, so you need to watch and see how they grow. That was the explanation given by one of my. But anyway, well, basically the point is, you have to look out for them, like keep them on your radar, because you need to get a sense, like after some time, do they become more influenced or influential? But in terms of prioritizing, I would say definitely look for these drivers and these. I think that would be sufficient for you to obtain some indication of what you should be taking in for your analysis.
Any other questions before we go into?
Yes.
Okay, maybe the last question before we do we need to do some practice.
Just like in general, like the things you showed us the last session about the reports. How can we use the reports or the analysis of the reports to help us?
Oh, the reports from the research and analysis?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So wait, let me get that out.
Is that, can we like combine these two analyses, or is that something separate?
Do you have any reports?
I don't, no, I really, we just basically did the systems modeling for that one. I did it, in that one we have some reports, yeah.
Oh, okay. Right, so, wait, let me just. Let me just check something and then I'll respond to your question. Oh, okay. So basically what you can do, like what I mentioned very briefly at the start, is before you even build a systems map, you should do the analysis. I mean some research, and get a broad understanding of what you're dealing with. So that would really come in this step here. So you would do a search, start collecting documents, and create folders to store those documents. And following an internal group discussion, for example, you get a sense of some of the key drivers that you want to bring into your systems map, for example, education, outreach, and so on. So what you then do, in order to take in these individual, this is what I call the evidence base. What you can do is actually drag the relevant articles, okay? Go into your systems map space and attach those articles to the node, to the relevant node. Okay, so basically, when a person looks at this node, education outreach, what he can do is then look at the attachment to understand more details on why this node is important for this analysis. So ideally, the content would be containing more details about education outreach, the strategies, and so on. So that's how you incorporate the analysis into the map. It's a continual process, but it takes a whole lot more time than 14 weeks. But that would have been ideal.
Yeah, but we have the basis of that, because
Yeah.
you spent the last 4 to 5 weeks researching, and you've identified emerging issues, trends, structures. So you have that stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
You should, by now, I hope.
If you
don't, then you still have another 3 or 4 years. Okay, any other questions before we go into practice? All right, so that gives us half an hour or so for some practice. Try to do the morphological analysis, and we're all here to support you. All right, thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Is it just like